It serves nothing to dissimulate our own responsibility for the disasters that have struck us and continue to strike us. Our complicity in the treatment of the slaves is well established. Our absurd divisions, our collective errors. Between the 15th and 19th centuries, it is estimated that about 12 to 13 million Africans were taken from their homeland and deported to the Americas. They were crowded in ships in inhumane conditions, so many died during the voyage. The kingdom of Dahomey, today Benin, was considered to be one of strategic importance for European slave traders, and the coast city of Ouidah quickly became one of the principal centers of commerce for the slave trade. Once they were bought, the chained slaves were forced to circle the so-called Tree of Forgetfulness, so as to forget the road back, and therefore their roots, their memories, their freedom. But before leaving, they circled the Tree of Return 3 times, so that their soul could one day return to the land of their birth and rejoin those of their ancestors. They travelled this road to reach the coast and board the ships. 4 kilometers sown with totem fetishes and statues recede their uncertain and horror-filled steps. This huge arch was built at the edge of the sea in memory of their lives. It is the port of no return, the end of their freedom, the embarkation from their origins to an irreversible destiny. In 2000, a short distance from the Arch of Shame, this monument was built to celebrate the missionary presence in Benin, symbolically called the Port of Return. UNESCO proclaimed August the 23rd the International Day for the commemoration of the slave trade and its abolition. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948 prohibits slavery of any kind. Yet, there are still many children in the world who live in conditions of slavery. In Benin, 1 child in 6 is taken from the family to do domestic servitude for others. A centuries-old tradition has been reinterpreted for the sake of money. In Africa, and especially in Benin, the family is not only the nuclear family. The extended family exists. The whole society educates the child. Ties are created among the various families. The child may be entrusted to a family responsible for its instruction. Due to various economic crises and other factors, this type of entrustment has been distorted, generating the phenomenon of child slavery. In our hospitality house, female children and adolescent girls arrive who have borne mistreatment of every kind. The family home, Laura Vicuña, of the Daughters of Mary Help of Christians, is a place of welcome and of passage. The objective is to reinsert the children into their families of origin. I have the task of doing the social interview. Once the child arrives in the family house, the parents or guardians are sought and the situation is evaluated before the girl is reinserted. This is done in order to help her, whether she's enrolled in school, in professional formation, or in the family house of the sisters at Zogbo, or reinserted into her family of origin, or in one of hospitality. I do this work in many villages of Benin, but also in Togo, Ghana, and the Ivory Coast. My work enriches me and gives me the strength to continue working with the Salesian sisters to help these girls. In Benin, there is a police force called the Juvenile Police, who are specialized in the protection of children who are victims of trafficking, of exploitation, of abuse and of violence. When these are discovered, the social worker's job begins. The juvenile police called me. I brought 8 girls to the family home. Of these, 7 came from the same village and were about to be brought to Nigeria. The police intervened and the trafficker was arrested. We will make a dossier and we will look for their families who live north of Benin. The family is the natural place for the girls and adolescents. Even though these girls have been wounded and have suffered, they always desire to return home. There have been cases when we spent 3, 4, or even 5 years before finding a family member. I remember Nestre, a little girl who arrived in the foyer and said she remembered. We went 3 or 4 times, a trip of 120 kilometers to Cotonou. I myself went, and finally, after 5 years, she was able to reinsert herself. Tanyi returned to her village, surrounded by the joy of her relatives, after a paternal uncle had brought her to Cotonou without her parents' knowledge, probably to make her work at the market. Christine was entrusted to an uncle by her parents in order to assure her a better future. But he sold her to a guardian. She was able to escape and movingly recounted her story. The whole village gathered under a tree to listen to her. Christine can continue to study to become a hairdresser as she has always dreamed. The encounter with the family is not always easy. Geraldine was taken from her village near the lake area of Sochanwe by an aunt who forced her to work without pay as a house cleaner in Nigeria. She was able to escape from there. Upon her arrival in the village after a 7-year absence, her family seemed disinterested. The job of the social workers Dominique and Claudine is also that of motivating the families to take the responsibility for caring for their own children. Many little girls are still waiting to find their families. My name is Elizabeth. I was entrusted to a family when I was 8 years old. They mistreated me. One day when my guardians had ordered me to buy something, I ran away. The police brought me to the juvenile police, where Dominique came to take me to the sisters. My name is Esther. Estelle Infong. I was 5 years old and I was with my mother when my father came and said he wanted to bring me to Nigeria. My mother did not agree. One day while I was sleeping, my father came and brought me to Nigeria where I was mistreated. One day my bosses ordered me to go to buy some petroleum, and I got lost. The police brought me to the center of Zimande, where they asked me many questions, and finally returned me to Benin to the juvenile police. I am 12 years old now. My name is Bernadette, but when my aunt sent me to Nigeria, they called me Fumilajo. I was sold to another family, but they beat me. I did not see my parents for 7 years. Finally, I escaped, and they brought me to the Red Cross in Benin. From the Red Cross, they brought me to the juvenile police, and then to the land of men. Then I was took to the juvenile police again. It was there that Dominique came and took me here. I want to learn a trade and have a diploma. Sometimes the reinsertion is particularly difficult and delicate because of the risk involved. This is the case of Noélie. My name is Noélie. My aunts proposed to marry me off 2 times, but I refused. One night, they took me and tied something like a sack of corn on my shoulders. Then they beat me violently, threw palm alcohol on my wounds, and left me in the middle of the field, saying they would present me to my future husband in that state. Luckily, a man rescued me and freed me, and I ran away. Now I am with the sisters, and I want to finish my apprenticeship, get a diploma, and become someone in the sight of my parents. The inability to return to one's own family, even in grave situations like this, means that the girl loses her dignity as a person. In Africa, the family is a big net, and a point of reference which one cannot ignore. To be refused by one's own relatives means there is no prospect for the future. In fact, the family is the community in which one grows. It is the elementary cell that unites and determines all choices. An African proverb says, "The river does not flow straight because it is alone." Thus, the family's role as a guide cannot be substituted. But it's the whole society which must make itself the interpreter of the needs of so many children, offering them positive role models, welcoming them and taking care of them as precious resources. It must inspire them with constructive actions, like the good star that guides the sailor.